Hello, Squatch American. Scott here from Squatch America.
And Hannah, the very freaked out domestic goddess in the paddy wagon. That new intro just like had me going, what happened to our computer? He didn't even tell me. See, this is what I have to live with all the time.
There we go.
All right.
All righty. So it's kind of warm here today, but we do not have our air conditioner on. So
Actually, it's not horrible. It was only like 79 today. So I am not complaining. Did not turn the AC on all day.
there we go.
We'll save the grid all by ourselves.
Yeah, all by ourselves.
All right.
So we got a great guest on tonight.
Yep.
So you ready to get this show on the road?
I am.
Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a gentleman who has studied not just Bigfoot, but cryptids.
All of the fantastic
all of them.
beasts.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's got a book called Cryptids of the World, if I can speak English here. I give you Ryan Edwards. Hi, Ryan. How's it going?
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm doing
All righty. Let's say hi to our folks here.
All right. We got Mainers in the house. Hi, Scott. Nice to see you.
And Joe, the Squatch Cowboys
Scott,
on.
we were just talking about you tonight, Joe.
Yeah.
We got Renee and Melissa and David and Roy. So thanks for being here. And if you are just kind of lurking, we have it on good authority that there are lurkers in our audience now and again. Just drop a hi in the comments.
Right.
Or I'm going to put it out there. If you are uncomfortable commenting for whatever reason, just shoot us a message after the show. Let us know you were there. Hi, Donna.
All righty.
Okay.
So, Ryan, as we get into this here, I'm going to ask you, what got you into the cryptid world?
With me, Willie, my interest in cryptozoology started as a child. Like most young boys, I love dinosaurs, ecology, animals, mysteries, and kind of I fell into the lap of cryptozoology, I have to say. Because cryptozoology mixes a little bit of everything. You have dinosaurs, monsters, mysterious beasts, and one thing that really that got me into it was TV shows. Like one big one I watched as a child was Monster Quest, created by Doug Hychek. And
Yep.
I love watching the show because it shows the more of the scientific side to this, and not just a bunch of fantastic animals, but also there's science behind it. Because I was always a fairly intelligent child, I could say, fairly academically gifted. So I saw the science, and it got me into like, okay, there are unknown species out there. How can we discover them, or at least try to do some research into them and try to find the origins of them? So really, I've kind of been into this ever since I was a kid, and just been growing ever since.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And I totally understand that because that's what kind of got me into this. I was interested as a kid too, but I went to school and became an anthropologist, and my expertise was in Native American culture. And when I started seeing all the stuff that the Native Americans had, the history of Bigfoot with them, I started looking into, the morphology of the foot and stuff like that. And I thought, well, there's science here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in Texas.
There's
a lot of there's a lot of Bigfoot stuff down there. I know not just Bigfoot, but so I had a question, just and this is something I just recently saw on the Squatch and Cowboys channel too. It is the gosh, I just forgot.
Do not ask me because
I forgot the name of the lake. Lake Worth, the Lake Worth monster. Now, I wanted to ask this question because this is something I get asked every once in a while. So, that's considered, sometimes they say that's a goat man, or we've got a lot of Bigfoot, or other, like up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, they have this the dogmen.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're all Bigfoot, just misidentified, or do you think there's goatmen and dogmen and things like that from your research?
Well, from my research, these cryptids, like Dogman and Goatman, I like to put them in their own little category of cryptozoology. I like to call it paracryptozoology. These are cryptids that, if they do exist, they cannot be some type of evolutionary physical creature. So I kind of put it out of cryptozoology because cryptozoology deals with the biological basis of ecological evolutionary creatures, something that has evolved here on Earth. So with the dogman and goatman phenomena, there is something to it. I've talked to eyewitnesses and seen evidence for it, but what they are, I have no idea. It could be how perception alters reality. Like what you see and what you think you see are two different things. So it could be fear affecting people's minds. Because even if you look at a lot of early depictions of Bigfoot and wild men, they would actually have horns on their head. Because back in the day, with highly religious communities, they presume evil to be demonic, demonic equals horns. So something that's unknown and evil, they added horns to it. So this might have the origins of ideas like sheep squatch or the Popelik monster or even the Lake Worth monster. Is that maybe they are a misidentification and how they also correlate to ancient history. We have centuries and centuries and thousands of years of tradition of some type of unknown human-like canine creatures. We have like Anubis from Egypt. We have the god Baal from Mesopotamia. So what if people's beliefs are affecting what they are seeing? So are they all Bigfoot? It's possibly most like it could be a misidentification of Sasquatch. But at the same time, that's like saying if you see a Sasquatch, a misidentification. So with it, I kind of put a little bit more belief into people's perspectives, into their belief sets. But it could be just misidentifications of Sasquatch. But with the descriptions, I believe it could be something else, a bipedal canine or some type of human ungulate hybrid. What they are, I'm not sure, but there is some type of phenomenon going on.
Hmm.
Oh, the audience is already at it.
Yeah, the audience.
Oh, I wanted to.
I heard a dog man.
Yes, you did. You did hear a dog because our dog looked out the window and saw dirt
And barked at
and
it.
barked.
So,
That's what she does. I really, really. Oh. This is where we fall into contention. I really appreciate what you said about what people see and what people think they see. It can be two different things because perception creates truth, it creates your experience of truth every time. So you can have 5 people looking at the exact same creature and 5 different interpretations of what they saw,
Mhm.
Yes.
just like the rest of reality.
Yep. Yeah, and even within like Bigfoot enthusiasts, their descriptions. I mean, we get a lot of reports, and some of the descriptions are wild.
Yeah.
Out there, and some of them are very interesting. Like there was an old time Bigfooter back in the day named Datus Perry out of Carson, Washington, and he had several interactions with Bigfoot. So he was one of the first persons to make a huge cutout and paint it, to make his depiction of Bigfoot. And the cone head on his Bigfoot looked like a pyramid. I mean, it was gigantic,
Like how Ivan
you
Marks
know, and
is. Like Ivan Marks, like his
yeah,
Bigfoot head's on. It's like cone head or something like that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it looked like the old cone heads from the old TV show. Yeah.
I want to say hi to William. Mr. Nighthawk, hello. And I'm taking a detour here because yes, Scott is looking. Oh, come on. I can't get it to show.
He doesn't like you.
It doesn't like me. Doesn't like you either. Yes, he said, Scott, you're looking a little squatchy. Yes, actually, he is looking a little squatchy.
Oh, there we go.
Because we'll talk about it later. We're going after the Duck Dynasty look.
Yeah, that's it. All right.
So Renee said she was barking at suspicious dirt. Yes, all dirt is suspicious. So, oh, Pyro wants to know if we can give them a teaser on those mountains we were headed for last week later in the show.
Oh, yeah, probably. Okay. Let's go back in.
All right. Sorry about that.
So another question I get a lot is if I wasn't a Bigfooter myself, if I was to pick any other cryptid that I think is probably out there, as much as I know that Bigfoots exist, mainly because I saw one, but if I had to go after another cryptid, what my favorite one, what I think actually exists is probably I would go after the chupacabra, you know, because of the reports and stuff we get. So, what would be your, I would say, main cryptids you think are provable? I guess the words I'm looking for out there.
What would be if you had to choose a cryptid that seems to be the most legitimate outside of Bigfoot? What would it be?
That's kind of a hard question because there are a lot that I think are plausible, highly plausible.
Mm-hmm.
One, I kind of won't give one particular name, but one group of cryptids that I do a lot of research into are the relic hominoids, the relic hominoid phenomena. The other Sasquatch or human-like creatures seen around the world. One I would especially talk about is the Ogugwi of Eastern Africa. These are seen in parts of Kenya and Tanzania. But not recently, not within the last 50 years, but the native tribes would have stories of these small, hairy humans or men that lived in the bush. They'll talk about them being about maybe 4 to 5 feet tall with red to black fur covering their bodies, and they would have usually very non-complex tools, very basal tools, maybe like carrying rocks or sticks. And these wild men, Agagwis, would live in the woods, in the jungles, and would hunt animals, things like that. And of course, this was being told about in the late 1800s or the 1900s. This is before 1967, where Lucy was found. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, the idea of Australopithecus and Paranthropus came around later. So at that point, we had no idea that there were small human-like creatures in that area. So I kind of question how did native people know of these creatures unless they did exist in recorded history? So I look at a lot of these like what we call proto pygmies seen around the world, like Orangpindek and the Notario and the Tilima, are very plausible because these native groups are referencing animals and humans that are extinct or should have been extinct, but yet they're referencing them in their own histories. Like even look at the Ebogogo of Flores. The native Naga people are referencing small human-like creatures that are like covered in fur and are hobbit-like. And of course, in 2005, Homo floresiensis was found, a small human-like creature. So how are people referencing an animal that they shouldn't know exists? It's like Sasquatch in North America. I
Mm-hmm.
really look at the native indigenous tribes and say, okay, if they are referencing an animal, then it's more likely to be true. Because of course, once an area is anglified, our own whether it be British or German culture or whatever enters that area, and then the folklore does get changed. So I look at the original true folklore from the native people and with these cryptids. So those are most likely the cryptids that are most likely to exist.
Yeah, in fact, Dora just brought up the pukwudgie, which is another small humanoid type cryptid.
Yeah, and that's seen in like the northeastern areas of America, like the Hockomock Swamp and parts of Massachusetts, and those are
Mhm.
believed to be very similar to like the elves or Hooten folk of European folk.
Mhm. Yep, and there is actually a lot of Native American culture legends about small people
Yes, like
that
one
I've
big
read.
one is like the red man of the Delta. A lot of people believe
Mhm.
these are just younger big Sasquatch, but others believe they might be even a smaller, maybe not a subspecies of Sasquatch, but very similar morphology, but very dissimilar in their size and behavior.
Mhm.
Oh, he'll be
Absolutely.
back. He will be. He warned us that his computer might overheat, so he will be back in just a minute. While we're waiting for
While we're
him,
waiting, let's
let's pay
let's
for this show.
let's sell you something. How's that sound? All right, I got to find my.
Squatch Americans. The entire world is experiencing food shortages. Supply chain breakdowns continue to have a domino effect on everything, especially food production. Farmers can't plant as many crops now because of fertilizer shortages, forced regulations, and high fuel prices. This will cause more painful food shortages when we run out of the food that we're eating now. Food takes time to grow, so when farmers don't plant, months later, we don't eat. That's why you need to prepare for an increasing number of food shortages, and the best way is to invest in Ready Hour emergency food from My Patriot Supply. Click on our affiliate link below. It's a perfect hedge against skyrocketing prices and shortages. Those who know what's coming are getting prepared now. Shouldn't you? Click on our affiliate link below.
All right, we're back. It looks like Ryan's not back yet. So,
So I would just like to brag on myself a little bit
what?
and just tell everyone that with all of the food concern in the world, we will have pickles.
We
We will
will.
have a pickle famine because you know what? My cucumbers have got everything that I thought was a squash turned out to be a cucumber plant. Don't know how that happened, but I got more cucumbers than I ever thought would ever exist on the planet at one given time.
Mhm.
They just keep growing.
So that's cool.
So we are
So while
waiting.
we're waiting for him to get back, I want to say hi to a couple people. Hi, Mopar Bill and Melissa, who's never heard of a pukwudgie.
I just like the name of Pukwudgie.
And
Maybe we'll
of
name
course,
them.
William Nighthawk. We want to get you back on the show here soon.
Yes.
So there's that.
We said hi to Pyro. Pyro, you know it's really interesting. Oh, I see. Well, he's back.
Yeah, sorry about
There we
that.
go. That's okay. We ran our ad while you were gone, so you're good to
Good to
go.
go.
Yeah, living out here in Texas, that heat it gets to these computers and they can kind of get a little too hot. And I'm running my AC, but I'm running down it on a lower level because if I do run it, it's going to the whole time, and I don't want that sound. So hopefully that's the only time this happens. Hopefully,
Okay.
guys.
If not, we'll just run another ad. And we want to say hi to Dale, who popped in about a quarter of an hour in. Dale is in the house. So
Oh,
hi,
is
Dale.
it?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
So and thank you. Actually, who said that? It was David. Thank you so much. We are going to try to do more shorts in an attempt to beat the algorithms. So
There we go.
please like and share and like and share and like and share some more. And so anyway, hey Patty, nice to see you.
All righty.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a question?
No,
Well, thanks.
I don't. Okay.
So,
okay.
okay.
No. I do. Let's talk about your. Let's talk about you. So you are like a bona fide cryptozoologist, and The funny, oh, by the way, Scott, our enormous drinking vessels, Dollar Tree. They do not sponsor us, but he asked a question.
Oh, okay.
So $1.25 tree right
Yeah.
here. Yes, the best place for dinnerware. Okay, let's talk about cryptozoology, of course, is not recognized by mainstream academia as anything worth anything, but we all know that we make up all these labels and titles and diplomas anyway. So, so tell us about your educational background. Tell us. You've shared with us, what got you interested, but what was your educational background to prepare you for what you're doing now?
Well, of course. I will admit it. I'm a young guy. I'm only 21 myself, so I'm going through college as of now. And I was originally going through for a major in ecology and animal sciences. But I'm changing over my major into education. I'm going to become a teacher after college. So I have a fairly good basis in ecology, evolution, adaptations. But one big science I've always done research in, and this is outside of academia. This is stuff I've done on the side in my own research.
Hmm.
Is paleoanthropology, human evolution. How have we gotten to the way we are now? Like literally on my bookshelf, I have a copy of Fossil Man and Human Footprints. Where have we come from? And I love reading about our origins. Also, paleontology. That's something that I haven't really gone into academia and college for, but I've done years and years of research into ever since I was maybe like a kid. So I've done a lot of research outside of academia and education, and my education is more on like going into becoming a teacher. So with it, I might not have exactly all the maybe necessary degrees and all that with cryptozoology to maybe give me all the accolades, but I see it as with cryptozoology, it's a lot of outside knowledge, knowledge that you've gotten just out of your own research and your own ideas. So with it, I might not be. Of course, you can't get a degree in cryptozoology, of course.
No.
But I
At least not
believe,
from a government-funded institution.
Yeah.
at least not from that, yes. But I do have some basis in like animal sciences and ecology. From my
Um,
That's very cool. So what are you aspiring to teach? I was a teacher before the pandemic, so
uh,
very interesting to me. What will you be teaching?
I'm planning on going into high school history or biology. Primarily, maybe human geography or U.S. history.
that's cool. Yeah. No, I went to college and I'm an anthropologist. I mean, of course, we had to learn, evolution. Of course, that's what anthropology is about. Um, yeah, but we even had to. I even got one of our tests we had to take was they give me a box with an entire actual human skeleton in it in pieces, and I had to lay it out on a table and name every bone in the body. you know, but one of the things that I didn't realize, like when I got into university, is that picture of the monkey turning into the man that you see all over the place
It's
is
very
not how it worked. Yeah. Yeah.
the linear hypothesis of human evolution has kind of just been debunked in the past couple of decades.
Yeah. Yeah. It was totally gone. Um, you know, and what really enlightened me is the fact that there's been so many of humans, you know, different species of humans, I guess we put it that way, living together at the same time, you know. And that's what made me think that why is today any different? At any given time, there's been 3 to 5 species of humans living together. So why is today any different? So that gives me the possibility of Bigfoot being maybe just a relic hominid, and then of course the Puckwudgies and all the small people, could be another relic hominid that's still alive, just hasn't went extinct.
Yeah, like that is kind of a something I like to talk about. Like the principle of human creation is like we have never been alone. we've always had another human species alongside us, or at least human-like species.
Hmm.
Whether it be Homo erectus or Australopithecus or even Gigantopithecus. So why would the past 10,000 years be any different? Of course, there most likely isn't any maybe Neanderthal or Denisovans left. But why not another creature? Another, or maybe Neanderthals have survived. We don't know. There are still several anecdotal references to human-like species living on this earth that aren't human. The Almasty of Russia or the Chuchuna of parts of Mongolia. So
Hmm.
why would we be alone now? We just have that idea that because we're in a modern day, it makes us different. And I put everything in perspective with history. Like with the perspective of that, why is today any different? So why would we be alone? So this Sasquatch and other like hominoids makes it even more likely if we look at our own evolution, our own ecological history.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in fact, with the invention of DNA, we actually did. I don't know if you've heard this, but uh, Neanderthal is still alive. Uh,
Yes, still within our DNA. Like
yeah, it's with him.
most humans,
We bred them out. So
yes, unless you're sub-Saharan African, you most likely have 5 to 6% Neanderthal DNA within you, and maybe even 1 to 2% Homo Denisovan DNA within you. Especially the Nepalese people of parts of the Himalayas have a high possibility of having Denisovan DNA because that's what allows them to live at higher altitudes.
mhm. Oh, absolutely. Yep. So, um, so I'm gonna change gears on you a little bit here. What about aquatic cryptids? We have a legend here just locally. We're in Oregon right now, and there's Wallowa Lake up here, and they have the Wallowa Lake monster. Uh, we and you hear of like Champ, and there's a whole bunch actually that I
Yes.
can't recall. Lake monsters. Uh, what's your thoughts on those cryptids?
Well, with me personally, I've always had a not a problem with lake monsters, but just some ecological issues with it. Because if you look at a lot of these lake monsters, whether it be Champ or Ogopogo or the Bear Lake Monster or Flathead Lake Monster, they're very similar. And they're very similar to one archetype, Nessie. They're very plesiosaur like or
Mhm.
very eel like. And when you look at the just the pure ecology of it, how can a large, sometimes even a marine mammal or marine reptile persist in a lake? And a lot of people say, well, it's just one, and that's not a viable option. There's a lowest viable population density, and that's usually between 50 and 500. So you need to have 50 of these creatures living in a lake for it to be plausible. And at that point, I believe you would have a lot more sightings, a lot more sonar hits, a lot more boat hits with some type of large creature.
Yeah.
So the idea of lake monsters, I have issues with. Ideas of maybe lake monsters that are connected to the ocean, possibility. Like look at Loch Ness. It's connected to the ocean via the River Ness. So there's a possibility that some type of marine animal has moved into Loch Ness, but persisting there for a long time, I don't believe so. Maybe they are migrating the tree. And
Mhm.
even people bring up these lakes being connected somehow via like uh, tunnels or caves, like Morag. Loch Morag in Scotland is only maybe 20 or 30 miles away from Loch Ness, and it has its own Nessie stories. Is it the same creature? Probably not. There's no known cave systems that connect these lakes. But the ideas of lake monsters being viable, at least from an ecological and evolutionary perspective, is very unlikely. The only thing I would counter with that are the lake monsters I've seen in Canada. Ogopogo, Igopogo, Winnepogo, these lake monsters are seen to be very similar in description. Large eels that are usually black in color, maybe 20 to 30 feet long. And because the same animal is being seen from lake to lake, that gives me the idea that maybe this is the same species, but that has been distributed to several lakes. Now, are they maybe growing to that same length and then maybe dying off? This is why we don't have 20 or 30 of these giant eels. That's an option. But because there's similar descriptions in several lakes, that tells me it's a possibility of a viable species. But the other ones, it's very unlikely. They're most likely probably created thanks to like Nessie or Champ or other high name, high they recognize the lake monsters.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of them are just to sell T-shirts, basically, at a lot of
Yeah,
places. But it's kind of interesting. Like the one here, like you mentioned something that some of these lakes may be connected somehow,
Like
which
Crater Lake and Wallowa Lake.
yeah, like so
yes,
in Eastern Oregon here we have Wallowa Lake, which is where one of these creatures are supposed to live. But Crater Lake on the other side of the state is actually a volcano crater that's full of water.
yes.
But what's really interesting is Wallowa Lake here in Eastern Oregon and Crater Lake are always exactly at the same level and sea level all the time together.
And they're also exactly the same temperature.
Yeah, which is really interesting. So they think, well, there's a connection between them,
Yeah, like an underground river connecting the two.
which is kind of interesting, but that's 400 miles away from each other. So,
Yeah.
or it's a coincidence.
A coinkydink?
Yeah.
Are there really coincidences in the world?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Well, it is the bottom of the hour.
The bottom of the hour. Okay.
So what are we selling to these poor people now?
What are we selling? Actually, I wanted to talk about stuff that's coming up for us here.
If you have not, I will interject. So, speaking of selling, please open your emails. I have cut the email way down. I will only send it once a week. And in this week's email, as it has been for a little while, our classic mug is on sale. You can see the evolution of Blue Mountain Bigfoot research into Squatch America on that mug. They are only $5 plus shipping. And my apologies, we all know how shipping has gone through the roof, but we really do want to get rid of them. So all you have to do is click on the link in your email. It will take you to the Squatch America shop, and you can order it, and we will get it right out to you.
Yep, there you go. So what we got coming up is come on.
It's having issues tonight.
Yeah, it's like our computer's having issues too. It's not throwing. Oh, there we go. Our next thing coming up is September 23rd and 24th in Pocatello, Idaho. We are going to be at the Bigfoot Rendezvous 22. We'll be on stage speaking with Dr. Jeff Meldrum and Cliff Barrickman, of course, from Finding Bigfoot. And then we also got
Mark Mercel, Becky Cook, and Matthew Freeman.
Michael Freeman.
Michael Freeman.
I know you were going to get it wrong. Okay, Michael Freeman from the famous Freeman film. This is his son, Paul Freeman, who filmed the Freeman film in Eastern Oregon. This is his son who just wrote a book about him. And then Becky Cook Armstrong, who wrote a few books like Bigfoot Lives in Idaho. Bigfoot Still Lives in Idaho. Bigfoot Lives Forever in Idaho. So there's that. And then I want to say October 1st, we are going to be, let's see if I can bring that one up. There we go. On the Eagle Cap train rides out of Elgin, Oregon on October 1st. You can go to eaglecaptrainrides.com and buy your tickets. They are going fast, so
they sell out really fast, and the lunch they serve you is well worth the ticket price all by itself.
Right.
Trust me.
So we're going to be talking Bigfoot on the train. And then after that, we are going to do kind of a joint deal with our Squatch America group and the Beaverines, which is from a preparedness community that is on the internet called Prepper Nation. Anyway, we're going to do a Bigfooting and bug out type camp out with these folks.
Bigfoot and Beaverine camp out.
I know.
I don't know what came out of your mouth, but it wasn't that.
Well, the preppers, they bug out. That's what they
Okay,
do.
so we should have called it a Bigfoot and Beaverine bug out.
Yeah, we
not
should
a
have.
camp out.
But
whatever.
anyway, so that'll be October 3rd through the 7th at Target Meadows, which is only about 10 miles south of where the Paul Freeman film was shot. And it's where we have found footprints. Target Meadows Campground in Tollgate, Oregon. You'll have to Google it. You can come hang out with us one day, 1 hour. We're going to be there October 7th or 3rd through the 7th. And we'll be just camping and Bigfooting.
And this does not interfere with any hunting season.
No, it isn't. So yeah, we had to find that window
The
there.
sweet spot.
Yeah. And then October 21st and 22nd, I know it only says the 22nd here, but we'll be at the Yakima Valley Bigfoot Con in
Toppenish,
Washington. So
he did it.
I know, that's what we do.
He did it. Renee, what are you hunting? We looked. We looked. There was no hunting season.
You know, what are you
hunting?
The only
squirrels?
hunting season was bear season.
Oh my gosh, I like that Squatchtoberfest. That Scott Dunbar said Squatchtoberfest.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
So please.
All right. So Gibbs says there are no coinkydinks.
All right. So we actually had a mention back on the William Nighthawk from the from the High Strangers podcast says, please remember that the native Indians' indigenous legends are based on fact like Ogopogo.
Shinko.
I can't say that word. What?
Shunkawaki. It means very off dogs.
Tall man and more. Yes. Okay. No, I think every cultural myth is based on some kind of historical fact. Becomes myth because, like you said earlier, everything, I mean, we see things and we interpret things differently, so things do get interpreted differently, and that's where they become legend over time. But yeah, everything starts out as absolute fact. I mean, yeah, I don't think we're creative enough to pull some of this stuff out of our backsides.
Yeah, like bring up what Nighthawk brought up, the Shunkawaki means to carry off of dogs in the Iowa Native American language. This creature is almost looks like a mix of wolf and hyena. Has a sloped back, has a very canine-like muzzle and head, but ultimately looks very hyena-like. And of course, there's no indigenous hyenas to North America, except for prehistory. During the Pleistocene, there was a creature called the Chasmotites. The running hyena. It was a hyena indigenous to North America. So, how are Native Americans talking about hyenas if they've never seen one? So it's caused many to believe that the Chasmotites, the American hyena, has persisted until to the modern history. And even like the Chugwawakian has its own histories, and even like Bigfoot and all these other creatures are referencing animals that no one should know about. Like even the Ojibwe Native American tribe talks about the stiff-legged beaver. They're referencing a large animal, maybe the size of like a buffalo or bigger, with large legs, a short tail, and what they describe as giant horns coming out of its face, and a long nose. What they're referencing is a mastodon or a mammoth. They just didn't have the words for it. So these Native American legends, even though people think of them as just legends and stories, there is truth there to it.
Oh, absolutely. And David actually said something that was very interesting here. He said the coelacanth, was discovered in 1938 off the coast of South Africa, caught in a fishing net, and they thought they were extinct for 65 million years. A lot of these creatures, I think, could be these ancient beings that we thought were extinct that aren't.
Yes. Like with me, I do a lot of research into the Lazarus taxon phenomenon. The idea of prehistoric species persisting into the modern day. Like the thylacine, the coelacanth, the even Sasquatch to an extent can be a prehistoric species that survives in modern day. Living dinosaurs, living pterosaurs. A lot of these animals could be just relics from a bygone age, whether it be uh, deep history, deep prehistory, or modern, fairly recent, like the Pleistocene or Pliocene.
Yep, absolutely. So I got a question that kind of pertains to this. If we go into like Native American legend of the Thunderbird, uh, could they possibly be some type of prehistoric creature, flying creature that hasn't went extinct?
Uh,
What's your thought on that?
Actually, with me, I believe it could be that because in prehistoric North America, there's something called the pterosaur. Pterosaurs are giant birds of prey, most likely closely related to New World buzzards. But these animals had a wingspan up to about 10 to 20 feet. So they would look like probably a giant turkey buzzard or a giant eagle. And of course, the Native American tribes have the stories of the thunderbird, or even like the Piasa bird in the Mississippi River Delta. So they're referencing giant birds, and giant birds were once extant here in North America. Even in South America, in the Andes, you had Argentavis, which was a bird with possibly even another 20-foot wingspan. And these sightings persist into the modern day. So I believe these Thunderbird sightings are referencing prehistoric species that have not gone extinct yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or even some people believe they might be even more older species, like the whole living pterosaur and pteranodon idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking. I don't know. Pterosaurs kind of, to me, a little bit out of range, but uh,
William says, remember that there are two different descriptions of the Thunderbird.
Yes. Like there's the more avian aspect, and then there is the more reptilian descriptions of the Thunderbirds. Like a lot of people reference the Tombstone incident back in the 1800s, where a cowboy supposedly killed one of these creatures, and
mm-hmm.
what he killed supposedly had a head of an alligator and scaly skin and leathery bat-like wings. This is describing a pterosaur-like creature.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But of
So,
course, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. I'll
Uh,
hold my question.
Of course, I got you. Sorry, but what it like what idea of pterosaurs living to the modern day, I do have issues with because it's been 66 million years. You would have
Mm-hmm.
believed that they would have adapted or evolved at that time and within this time, and that a lot of these descriptions are describing what we believe these creatures to look like, and not what we now know they truly look like within the paleontological record.
Right, but there's the terror bird that isn't that old, that were around when we were around, basically. And I wonder if there's chances of them staying, but they don't fly.
Yes, so actually, on my bookshelf across from me, I actually have a skull of a terror bird. And these creatures were truly horrifying. Imagine a bird skull that was two times the size of our own human skull. And these creatures stood about 6 to 9 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Titanus wallery was the only known force rocket to go into North America. But another bird, Kalinkin, a tail bird, was about 9 to 10 feet tall. So if these Native American tribes, these Paleo Indians, did see these creatures, I believe that would have left a very distinct feeling of fear within their hearts, and maybe would have became a cultural memory of some sort.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what fear can do to establish, perception of fact and perception of truth in a culture. I was going to ask, this is probably totally off base. I don't know. So, because I'm clueless about most of this, is Quetzalcoatl, is that is that like an Aztec depiction of Thunderbird?
It's a
Uh,
god.
it's a Aztec god.
Well,
Quetzalcoatl is
Yeah.
the feathered serpent.
yeah, I did know it was a god, but it kind of looks like that.
Yeah, true.
It looks very similar. Like another idea from the Aztecs is the ideas of the Camazons. These are described as almost like bat-like humans, and of course we have like the flying humanoid phenomenon that occurs nowadays.
Yeah. So
And yes, go on.
well, so if it's an Aztec god, of course the Aztec culture is. I feel William is going to be correcting me here any minute, but the Aztec culture, of course, is far older than our culture, and um, could these other forms of hominids, could they have been construed as gods at some point in perhaps our less advanced history? You know what I'm trying to ask here?
No, you lost me.
I
So.
have an idea, like more of these creatures may be deified within our history.
Yes, thank you.
Well, it's a possibility. Like one thing I bring up is like how many cultures have stories of giants or
Yes,
human-like species. So there's a possibility that due to how mysterious these creatures are, they were deified after a while. That's one thing with very not archaic but very basal cultures. If something is unknown and has more power than them, it can be deified. So it's a
yes,
possibility that some of these creatures were, but I believe due to the fact that they're so human-like, they might become more of the monsters and demigods we see in our folklore, the giants or the ideas of like man stealers and things like that. I don't believe maybe there were gods in these Native American ideas, but they were just another, or they were just another people beside them, another like tribe.
yeah. I want to thank William. Yeah, you know what? William and I are two of a kind
What's that?
because he totally gets me.
Oh, okay. No,
He said, "I get it. Yeah,
I get
okay."
it.
All
Well,
right.
no,
So
I was going to say that. Well, then in Native American culture, because that was my area of expertise, they humanized pretty much everything. You know, in their culture. The coyotes were the coyote people. Wolves were wolf people.
I love
They have
coyotes.
they did a lot of
Anthromo.
Anthropomorphism.
Thank you.
Yeah, to all the animals basically in their legends and stuff.
So we actually are 12 minutes away from the top of the hour,
Oh, okay.
which means we've got a few questions. The first question that you long since scrolled past, David wanted to know if you had a favorite research area or if you were just kind of an all around kind of research. Do you have a specific area or do you just look at all of it?
I primarily focus on what I like paleontology and cryptozoology, like the idea of living prehistoric creatures. Like, for instance, with my expertise in Pleistocene ecology and Pleistocene evolution and paleontology, I talk about like the ideas of like the Wahilo, the Shunkawaki, and other, and also especially like hominoids, because paleoanthropology goes hand in hand with a lot of cryptozoology. So I think with me, my specialization, I do a little bit of everything, but my specialization is truly like the hominoid phenomena and the Lazarus taxon phenomena, the idea of surviving prehistoric creatures.
Okay. So so you've actually your research area is less geographical and more what am I mean, you look at everything. You look at
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
everything and historical and you're seeing all the
yeah,
connections
because
between sub disciplines.
like
Okay.
as of true of like field research or anything like that, if that's also going hand in hand with this question, I don't do a lot of field work research because just simply because of time and budget constraints. So I've kind of become more of a people hate to use the word, but armchair researcher because I love looking at like the sightings maps and ideas of talking to eyewitnesses and things like that. But expedition wise, it's harder for me to do that, so I haven't really gone much. But when I do, it's mostly going to be here in Texas, like East Texas and Central Texas.
Okay. And then Donna had a question. It was way back up towards the top. But I think, Donna, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think basically what she wants to know is what do you, what, sorry, I saw a comment. What do you think Bigfoot is? What is your theory on what is Bigfoot? How would you classify Bigfoot?
Well, with a Sasquatch question, I believe it's more of a hominid, not a hominid. I believe it shows more ape characteristics and behaviors than human behaviors. Because with me, I believe truly Sasquatch is a prehistoric species. Its morphology, its behavior, its ecology demonstrates a what we call an evolutionary anachronism. It was built for the Pleistocene or the Pliocene, not for the modern Holocene. So I believe it's either two things. It's a very whatever that crossed the Bering Land Bridge, Beringia. It looked very much like what Sasquatch is today, or it was something a lot more basal and it evolved and become Bigfoot here in North America. With me, I'm running on the hypothesis now that it's some type of Miocene ape, like Dryopithecus or Danuvius, and that it somehow crossed Beringia during the Pliocene, and from about maybe 5 to 3 million years ago, has evolved to what we now know as Sasquatch, because it had evolved around some very scary monsters that once lived here in North America. So I do go hand in hand. I do look at the more hominid idea of like it being like hominoid, like Paranthropus or Australopithecus. But truly, in my research, I believe it's a unknown ape that has somehow evolved to become very human-like.
Yeah. So, a lot of people theory that Gigantopithecus is what Bigfoot is today, and mainly because where the Gigantopithecus bones are found, or the teeth basically is what they found in one jawbone, but it's on the edge of the Bering Strait 10,000 years ago, same time, same place. There's that theory that it did come across the Bering Strait or Beringia and then evolve. Uh, but personally, I've got my own theory is they walk upright, and from the photographs from like the Patty film and some other photographs that are more credible, uh, it seems to me like they have small canine teeth. So technically, that makes them a hominid, or and the human as opposed to an ape.
Yeah,
As far as that goes.
yeah, because
Yeah.
apes have large ice teeth or large canines, because that's
Uh-huh.
a description of a creature that has to fight for its dominance, like
Mhm.
gorillas and chimps. Humans, we don't have to fight for that, so we have very small canines. And with eyewitnesses of Sasquatch, they don't describe really large canines or anything like that. So it does, the dentition at least does demonstrate a more hominid characteristics, more human-like characteristics.
Cool. So do you want to ask that question? Here we go.
Sure. Okay, so David had an interesting statement earlier. Man is quick to dismiss myths, but are quick to hold the Bible as total truth. Or I want to add to that, quick to hold the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or the
Yeah.
Upanishads or the whatever sacred text
Mhm.
you want to look at. Look what is written in the Bible concerning what could be cryptids. Yes, the great Leviathan, absolutely, that are not talked in church. Am I off base here? I don't think you're off base, but that could get us into a real sociological historical discussion about
Yeah.
about how power structures come into power and what they use to maintain their power grip over the general population, which is not really the topic of tonight's discussion. However, we're going to be talking about some things that we've got in the works that could lead to that discussion at a future date. Okay, so
So what's your thoughts on using biblical texts as maybe possible research tools?
With me, I could use it as like a maybe a reference, but not as true research. It's
Yeah.
like that's the thing that gets you into the research, and then you go beyond that and use something else. Because using text that is thousands of years old and that has been annotated and changed and canceled out
Manipulated.
and
Hmm.
manipulated for hundreds and or possibly thousands of years, it's like trying to find a skeleton of an animal, but people keep breaking it, and every time you put it together, they break it again and separate it.
Right.
It's very hard to do that. So it's I don't really use it as a tool myself, but I know some people that do, and more power to them in my mind. But that's just not what I do.
Yeah. It's like one of the things when I got into Native American cultural research is another thing that kind of bothers, like what you just brought up, is the fact that over thousands of years, sometimes the stories change. And when you're basically with the Native American culture, everything's pretty much word of mouth and stories that go back, you know, thousands of years. You're playing basically the telephone game over the years. So how
Yeah,
much of this stuff has been added to, embellished, or whatever over the
And
years?
how many thousands of years and how many generations of perception have changed and evolving cultural mythology around what was a fact. I mean,
yeah.
it's that same thing. So Patty has our last question of the evening.
Yeah. Oh,
I hate to say it's these
this went
go so
so fast.
fast.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Um
Ryan, do you think the chupacabra may be a thylacine?
To put it simply, I do not believe it's a thylacine because
Uh,
actually, a good friend of mine, Ken Gerhard, that lives here in Texas, he calls it the Texas Blue Dog. I believe, like him, that it's some type of unknown canine, or at most maybe a coyote that has adapted and has some type of weird skin morphology. It being a thylacine is very unlikely because, of course, thylacines are only indigenous to Australia and
yeah.
Tasmania. And if
Mhm.
you look at the morphology of a thylacine, it's very dissimilar to what people are describing as chupacabras. At least chupacabras here in Texas. The chupacabras
Right.
here in Puerto Rico, that's a whole different story. Because chupacabra
Yeah.
describes behavior, not a description. Anything that kills animals and drinks its blood, it's a chupacabra. It can look like an alien, it can look like a bird, it can look like a dog, but it's still a
Mhm.
chupacabra. So if it's a thylacine, I would say no.
Yeah.
okay, fair
I
enough.
tend to agree with that myself. So,
Okay.
so
All right. So we are now 2 minutes away from
okay.
having to say goodbye to everyone. So did you have any final
Well,
announcements?
I want to let everybody know that if you want
Please go to
to Cryptid Chronicles,
cryptid.net.
yes, and if you want to check out Ryan's website, you can also get his book from there. And his book is called Cryptids of the World.
A conclusive guidebook to the menagerie of enigmatic animals seen across our natural world. And I rest my case. It's like Newt Scamander and his book on all the fantastic beasts. I am going to have to get this just because of that.
Yes, exactly.
I am a massive Harry Potter fan. Are you a Ravenclaw by any chance?
I usually come out either Ravenclaw or sometimes Gryffindor.
I got no Gryffindor in me.
So
I am all nerd, so
yeah,
I am
so
totally Ravenclaw.
anyway, so you can go to the cryptidchronicles.net and you can catch his you can link his your YouTubes from there, Facebook, Instagram, all the stuff.
Yep.
Go there.
That will also be, we'll make sure it's in the description for this video.
Mhm.
And we want to thank you for coming on our show. I mean, it was a chance meeting on Facebook,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I like my because I'm social on social media, and I make all sorts of great connections. So we'll have to have you back again sometime. But Roy, we're really glad that you caught us live too. I did want to uh, tell everyone to keep your eyes open. In October, if everything works out, we will be restructuring our Patreon
Mhm.
program. So just stay tuned for that. And there will be more value added content for you, including the opportunity if you really want to get into a sociological, historical, political live chat sometime, you can.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us.
Of course.
So-
It was a
and
pleasure to
as
be on.
And as always, thank you all for coming, being with us tonight, for supporting us. Please like and share and subscribe, click the bell, do all the things. Let's see if we can blow the algorithms out of the water because they're really stubborn.
Yeah.
Um,
And remember,
our job is to investigate the unexplained.
not to explain the uninvestigated.
So until next week, you keep watching
and we'll keep squatching.
bye now.
Bye.